Welcome back everybody to Lozy PC, and welcome back more in particular to War in the Pacific. How are we all doing? So we're back with turn 10 of the play by email between me and Invictus, and we are going to see how things go. A bit of a short turn today, not too much needing to be done, but we'll kind of explain as things go. So we're in tonight, and one of our submarines off Hawaii, as per usual, is kind of being spotted. Nothing really too much happens. They lose contact with the sub, so they kind of decide to move away from it. So yeah, that's fine at the moment. And we're just kind of doing some, the usual nighttime stuff. There's still no nighttime air raids, which is pretty nice. Kind of, makes things move on a bit quicker. And we find a Dutch sub. So the Dutch subs can be seen by the K and then Roman numerals. And we find this Dutch sub just off the coast of Cam Ranh Bay, one of our major ports in Vietnam. A couple of patrol boats trying to drop depth charges on it, but unfortunately not being able to hit it, which is a shame because, again, Japanese allied subs, we want to get rid of them to protect our shipping. And here again we find this PT boat squadron, I think would be a good term to give it, that annoyed us so much last time. They were the ones that managed to sink a couple of transport ships, etc. But unfortunately, again, our destroyers and the Notori can't seem to do any damage to it. So that's starting to get a little bit annoying and a little bit frustrating. Maybe if we caught them during the day, we'd have a much better chance at hitting them, just because there is, a better chance of kind of shooting from distance and kind of keeping out of the way of their torpedoes. I do get a little bit nervous when I see that they are, approaching at 2,000 yards, because that is the route that they used and the distance they used to sink our transport ships, and I'd much rather lose transport ships than destroyers and light cruisers. So here we find another submarine, this time right off the coast of Shikaku. So trying to sink it, and this is one of the other Dutch subs, this time sinking a light cargo ship, so frustrating. And here is a old American S-boat managing to hit and sink a patrol boat, so even more frustrating. Losing one of our anti-submarine ships. Yes, patrol boats, they're not particularly good, they're not particularly expensive or anything like that. We will produce more, we can convert some transport ships into it, but it's still annoying to lose one. We do manage to get a hit on the sub though, so that's okay. And then this is the same Dutch sub before. He's having a good day. Or at least I'm pretty sure it's the same Dutch sub as before, this time now sinking a larger cargo ship. So not great. We fire some torpedoes at a American destroyer off of Pearl Harbor and do nothing. So yeah, great. Not good at all. So now our aircraft are doing their casual flying. They are looking for whatever they can find. A few kind of missed sightings as seen by the blue writing, but mostly kind of spotting stuff that we're aware of, nothing too exciting. Although we do hear the radio chatter say we spotted enemy carriers. That doesn't always necessarily mean that they've actually spotted anything as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong, and actually what I don't do is I don't check this turn whether or not one of the ships that we saw off of Pearl Harbor did include some carriers. I should have done that. That's the whole reason why we've got things like the I-26, etc., that can use glens and use float aircraft to try and spot carriers or targets of opportunity leaving Pearl Harbor, to try and give ourselves as much of a kind of forward recon and understanding what Invictus is trying to do as we can. Now elsewhere, kind of as I'm talking, we can see some raids going on throughout China. Nothing too dramatic today. They're fine. I think is what I would say. We're not getting hundreds of casualties, but we are still inflicting casualties on the Chinese forces. So so long as we're doing that, that is the main thing. Now, interestingly, we see some Allied bombers this time from China, DB2s and SB3s, as well as some Hudsons. You know, kind of a mix of Soviet and Allied American aircraft. So, you know, nothing too exciting for them in terms of damage, but obviously, you know, he is trying to be a little bit more proactive in China. So, second lot of, you know, recon, and again, nothing super exciting, nothing overtly crazy or spooky. Yeah, I need to be a bit more on the ball with double checking recon ideas after I've said them, like for example with Clark Field, something we haven't really checked on after we've been sending things to patrol there. And considering, you know, we're not really finding anything on our cap and our sweeps, I'm tempted to try and see what happens if we do some more bombing in the future. Here is our bombardment at Nanchang, firing back at the Chinese that crossed the river, and as you can see, the level of, you know, assault value there is pretty even. So it's an interesting balance. There is some forces around, and we're going to try and free up some of our own troops as well. Hong Kong, good bombardment, which we're always happy with. And up here we see some Chinese collaborator units going up against the 83rd Chinese Corps, and we realize we have massive assault value superiority. So we'll be trying to defeat those up there properly next turn, rather than just kind of bombarding them. Elsewhere, a few airfields being expanded, but nothing too significant. So resources, etc., are moving, and then we'll dive into what we want to do. As I say, not too much that we're going to be doing today. It's not the particularly longest turn in the world, but hey, that's fine. It doesn't have to be. So, air replacement, and we do also get some replacements of some nates at Tokyo, so that's always fun. So, first things first, let's go have a look at China, and in particular we want to go have a look at where we see these Chinese collaboration units, and we're going to sit them to deliberate attack. We want them to deal with what is there. Kind of look around, see what else is kind of happening in regards to units and how they're moving. You know, we're going to set these guys to just deliberate attack to take that base. There's no units there, so they would take it anyway, but it's sometimes just good to get them to actually do that. And then I'm just looking here. We've got the 110th Division from the North China area. It was in strategic mode, so we're going to take it out, and we're going to change its future objectives. Instead of Luoyang, which is the place we're going to attack first, we're going to check and send it further back to Nanyang, which is, you know, slightly behind. So once we break through, then we can kind of keep going. It's a little bit of confidence on my part. You know, you've got to have it every now and then. Meantime, we are going to send out more anti-submarine patrols around the Luzon Strait, and in particular in between Formosa and the South China Sea. We're going to set up two lots of three sub-chasers. So, you know, these are ships designed to combat submarines. So fingers crossed they do pretty well, but we will see. And if we kind of keep this area clear, in the future, this is where we're going to try and swing our shipping through. You know, the less risks we can take with that shipping, the better. Even if it takes longer. You know, I don't mind wasting a day or two extra, kind of making sure we're moving stuff that is through protected territory and protected waters, rather than trying to go as quickly as we can and ending up, you know, getting caught out in the middle of the ocean, dealing with tankers and things like that. Now, there is something to be said for if we're taking longer with ships, then there's more chances for submarines to hit them, which I do kind of agree with, but I do think that if we're kind of keeping them around the bases of Cam Bay, Samar, Pescadores, moving up towards Shanghai, those are areas we can keep relatively clear, not only through aircraft, but also through sub-chasers and patrol boats that don't have particularly long ranges. So that way it does kind of help us out. Of course, we need to kind of see what routes we're going to do. This would be mainly if we were going from Sumatra, maybe even Batavia, but again, there's still this quite large bit of water between these areas, so it is something we'll have to consider, but we're not quite there yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just kind of having a look around, seeing what we need to move in Malaya, and we see that we have the 11th Regiment here, as well as a few other units in the 25th Army moving south. Now, interestingly, Invictus seems to be setting up maybe a roadblock, perhaps to slow us down, to try and give himself more chance to fortify Singapore. That kind of seems sensible and seems smart. And it does look like he's kind of maybe expecting us to land at Kuntan as well. Again, we're kind of going to take it slow with Singapore. It could be a risk, it could be silly, it could be the worst thing I've ever done. But the reason why is we want to kind of make sure that we have our units there, they're not too exposed, we don't end up doing anything completely stupid. That is the main idea. Don't do something stupid. So we're moving the 14th Tank Regiment from Bangkok down to Alo Star, and we also set it to plan for Singapore rather than Alo Star, which we've already taken. Now, this is where I've realised I've fucked up a little bit. We've got a load of infantry here, and artillery, etc., that is moving by foot, which it shouldn't be. It should be moving on trains down to Malaya. Now, interestingly, there is some here that are set for Rangoon and other places, so maybe that is a consideration. Maybe I'm planning to move them to Bangkok and then going from there to see what we're doing. Now, one thing I want to have a look at is, do we have any information about sunk ships from Pearl Harbor? And according to this, the only thing we know has sunk is the Colorado. Now, this doesn't actually mean that they've sunk either. This is our belief that the Colorado is the only thing that has sunk. If that is the only thing we managed to get out of Pearl Harbor, that's kind of annoying. But at the same time, we did see, if you go onto the AAR, which the link should be down below, that we did do significant damage to every single one of the US battleships in Pearl Harbor. Now, what that would mean for us is that even if we don't sink them, they're going to be out of action for a very long time. At least, hopefully, out of action for a very long time. It means it's either going to clog up Pearl Harbor, or Invictus is going to have to take the risk to try and transport them and move them to the west coast, the east coast. I keep saying the west coast because it's on the west side of this map, but the east coast of the US. San Francisco, Alameda, for example, are major repair shipyards. If he does try to do that, though, the issue he might have is that if they are already got flotation and surface damage, system damage, not surface damage, I'll get there eventually, then they might risk sinking in the Pacific. It's a long way from Hawaii to the USA, so it'll be interesting to see what he's doing. Maybe he plans on scuttling them, which I think would be a bit over the top, but obviously, again, it depends on what he sees is his strategic and tactical advantage. Because if you've got these being blocked up, or your repair shipyards, Pearl Harbor has a pretty significant one, although I wouldn't be using it for everything. If he is being held up there, that means that if we do damage to other ships, more pressure ships, particularly things like carriers, in the future, it means he's then going to have to, either delay the battleships even more, which again gives us an advantage in regards to, when he goes on the offensive, he doesn't have as many big guns to fire at us, or try to move his carriers to the east coast, the west side of the map, and the same issue would happen. Although, again, I don't think he would do that. That's too much of a risk. You don't want to lose a carrier that way. So we're kind of just looking around, having a look at where we can free up a couple more divisions, and we see that there is a division that can be freed up at Sushao. It only needs 100 garrison, and given that there is already some units there, we'll send a couple of those Chinese collaborator units next turn. After they've done their combat, hopefully they succeed very nicely, and then they can move down. We're just having a look to see what else is attached to this army. Nothing too much, and we're just kind of, again, looking around, seeing what things we've got, what things we're planning on moving, where have we got large units of divisions, etc., that we can move. Again, another one here, because moving these divisions, it's going to be really kind of useful and helpful for us. And we're seeing that this army, the 12th Army, has units kind of all over this area. So again, kind of thinking about what I want to do with this, but at least I know I've got a couple of divisions I can free up, That gives us even more infantry to use in China, hopefully breaking through and finishing off China quickly. So, kind of looking around, don't think there's much more else to do. So I'm just going to have a quick look at our industry, make sure everything is kind of building as it should be. And just kind of having a look. Helens are being researched, although they're not being rebuilt here yet. Now I realise that Gifu, which has got a few planes that we want it to start repairing, repairing the factories, doesn't have the supplies for it just yet. So we'll make sure that that has its 10,000 supplies so we can get onto it. As I say, we can see Helens here. We can see Franks are being built, as well as some A63Ms. And then we're just going to have a look to see how our building of aircraft is going. The Sonyas, for example, aren't building, but that was because Gifu wasn't having the supply to repair. You need 10,000 supply constantly. We see that Kates are getting built. We see Sally's are getting built. So I'm happy with all of those. And I'm just like, let's have a quick look for Betty Bombers. 25. And I'm thinking, let's just knock that up, shall we? Let's make that not 10. Let's make that up to 5. So then we're getting a Betty bomber every day, because they're fantastic aircraft. Very useful, very dangerous. We want to be making as many as we can to supply our naval squadrons. And then for their engines, let's make 20 more. I'm thinking of maybe making 15, but no, let's go for 20. That way, it covers the new Betty factories that we're going to build, and then some. We always want to make sure we've got a few engines in reserve, just because if we don't, it can get worse. And we don't want to not be able to produce any aircraft. So, just having a look at operation report, signal intelligence, nothing too exciting, so we'll leave it here. So, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us yet again on Loads PC. Please do check out the links down below. We do stream War in Pacific on Twitch, particularly an AI game, and we also have a Discord you can come and join. So, see you guys around. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!